The scandal around a Labour right WhatsApp group just keeps on growing. The so-called Trigger Me Timbers group, so-called, that's what they called it, consisted of around 50 members. I didn't realise it was 50. Many of them councillors and party officials. Crazy to put all of this in a group with 50 members. Their fondness for sexist, racist and downright offensive comments about other party members and constituents has seen quite a few heads roll. So Health Minister Andrew Gwynn has been sacked over his comments in the group. Burnley's Labour MP Oliver Ryan has also been suspended over his Trigger Me Timbers messages. And now a further 11 Labour councillors have been suspended from the party for their participation in the group. Can you imagine if your whole council group had to resign because they were in some stupid WhatsApp group? Some of the comments the group's members made are pretty grim. So left-wing party members are called trots over 190 times. Andrew Gwynn hoped one of his constituents would, quote, croak. That was because he complained about bin collections. And he referred to another as, quote, an illiterate retard. The group also targeted Richard Bergen, Rebecca Long-Bailey, Diane Abbott and Angela Rayner with some pretty malicious comments. But in the 1,000-page long transcript of their group chats obtained by Novara Media, there was one exchange that particularly jumped out. So in 2021, Novara Media's co-founder, Aaron Bastani, left the Labour Party, criticising divisions driven by the party's right. Here's how now suspended MP Oliver Ryan, disgraced former Minister Andrew Gwynn, and a third member of the group responded to that news. So Andrew Gwynn shares the tweet from Lee Harpin, sort of explaining this news. And then he says, Bastani has quit, which is a very clever play on Aaron Bastani's name because he's made it into Bastardi, like he's a bastard. And then Oliver Ryan says, I saw with some champagne glasses, oh, happy days, just Bergen and Pidcock now. And then Andrew Gwynn, who's very good at changing names to make them offensive, says Norovirus Media will be disaffiliating. Oliver Ryan says, hope so, SWP. And then the unnamed person, did you read his quotes? My God, what's his PhD made of? Sellotape. Norovirus Media. Lots of people do call us that on the right. I find it juvenile, let's say. You're allowed to hate our organisation, but grow up. Of course, Novara Media is still growing strong, and we can't say the same for Oliver Ryan and Andrew Gwynn, who are suspended from the party, and I think look pretty silly in public. Helena, I've had mixed feelings. Well, I haven't had mixed feelings about this story at all. I'm just going to tell you my feelings about this story, which aren't really mixed. I'm very confident in them. Which is, I am, I feel like lots of people think if their group chats were to be downloaded and put in public, it would be, you could take things out of context. It would be embarrassing. It's not very nice. I also think that we shouldn't be too quick to sort of expel people from public life for having said mean things in a context which they thought was private. Obviously, it's stupid to be saying this in a group of so many people. But the same thing stood out to me from this as did from like the Labour leaks, which is these people are very juvenile, right? Like if all of my WhatsApp messages were to get downloaded, there would be some things that I would be probably embarrassed about, or that sort of like I'd feel a bit mean about, or that, I was being a bit edgier than I would be in public, let's say. But like Aaron Bastardi, Norovirus Media, like I'm just not that kind of pathetic and kind of, yeah, it's just a bit sad. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, clearly they describe us as Norovirus Media because our current affairs coverage is infectious. That is why that they have described us as such, because clearly people cannot stop catching the things that we're giving out to the public, But either way, I think I do agree with you that, I am not past being juvenile. Anyone who follows my Twitter account will know that. I'm absolutely no way do I think that being juvenile is below me. But if I'm a YouTuber, I'm not an elected representative, right? The bar should be higher. But I do think you're right that in some cases, anything like the statements that are being made that they're really being vilified for. I mean, I've worked in retail. I've called customers worse things behind their back. Like, at the end of the day, some of the things that are being touted as being evidence that some of these people in these group chats can never be public servants. This is something that's unbecoming of them. I'm just like, well, this is all private stuff they thought would remain private rather than things they would say out in the open. But some of the things that aren't being treated with the level of seriousness that they should be is the stuff that is anti-Semitic. Right, so there was the comments about somebody sounding too Jewish, and from Andrew Gwynn saying that asking, "Is he from Mossad?" Like that is some anti-Semitism, as far as I'm concerned. And this was not given the same amount of levels of scrutiny from these Labour right figures, these anti-left figures, which you can see from the ways with which they treat not only people who are on the left outside of Labour, but also internally as well. Not even that far left, like Angela Rayner coming under the level of vitriol from these people, and she's very much on the soft left, shows you just how factional these people are. But the fact that these people don't get the coverage for things like, I think Oliver Ryan was caught with some statements in the WhatsApp group that could be deemed anti-Semitic. At the end of the day, does the fish still rot from the head? Does Keir Starmer still know what he must do if he's got this culture of anti-Semitism within the party? Will he say that the scale of anti-Semitism is being over-exaggerated for political reasons? Will this be this whole media scandal story? Or will the press quietly leave it alone? Because actually a lot of the reasons why the press caught on to the Labour anti-Semitism scandal at the time was because of the geopolitical relationship towards Israel's occupation of Palestine amongst the Labour left. Like, it seems to me that the coverage of these things is being treated differently depending on whether things seem to be unbecoming because they're juvenile, or whether we actually scrutinise the pretty kind of gruesome racist comments that you're seeing, again, about Diane Abbott too, as well as these anti-Semitic comments that you've seen in these WhatsApp leaks as well. One last thing I would say is that so much for high quality candidates. Would you imagine you'd see these kind of statements being made by the people who've been blocked from standing to be Labour candidates at the last election? Do you think you'd be hearing this from Lauren Townsend or a Lee Drennan or a Sean Halsall or anybody like that? I don't think you would. Yet the kind of people who are in with their faction, they're the people who got promoted in these instances. Again, people who've said these things that once they've been open to the public haven't been very happy with. Maybe there's some manufactured consent being led on there, but I don't think many people are going to be happy to hear that their elected representative thought they might die or hoped they would die, even in a joking fashion, by the next local election. So the coverage of this is kind of the thing I take issue with, rather than a lot of the statements that have actually been brought to light by the leaking of this WhatsApp group.
Yeah, I have to admit, I basically just haven't read much about this story, because when something is about like WhatsApp, I tend to just think like I should read something more significant than this. But was the tweets that sound anti-Semitic, when I sort of saw that, just sort of like on someone mentioning it on Twitter, I was like, were they maybe just saying that as sort of kind of taking the piss out of people they deem to be anti-Semitic? So maybe he's in Mossad. I thought maybe they were sort of like trying to take the piss out of the Labour left, who they think of, but I haven't read them in context, and it sounds like you have. So are they sort of genuinely offensive and it should be taken seriously, not that they were sort of trying to be edgy and trying to take the piss out of people they think are anti-Semitic? I don't know. I'm expressing my ignorance here. So what should I know?
I haven't. I mean, to be close, I haven't read these things specifically in context either, right? But at the very least, there should be a broader discussion in the media about what these things represent, right? I've only seen the leaks that have been proportioned in the articles that I've read on this specific issue. And whilst there's been a footnote, this has been ancillary to the main point they've made about the statements about the bin collection bit, which was the thing that I thought was, not nice, but kind of frivolous in the large scale stuff. But there's been like, could the anti-Semitism crisis reevaluate? But I'm like, well, how about we actually scrutinize this? And it's not seen the same level of scrutiny as far as I'm concerned. If someone's to enlighten me on the true context, if you have access to the full leaks that we'll be able to view, then I would like to see that. I personally haven't, so I wouldn't make those comments. But at the very least, are we really going to see the same level of coverage over even the potential for this? Because a lot of the statements that were made that were deemed anti-Semitic from people on the Labour left during the crisis at the time were things that were either stuff that was historically accurate but wasn't particularly politically sensitive, or was indeed a joke. Like, remember the Joe Bird incident where she is Jewish herself and she said something about due process as like a play on words, about, again, parodying the attitude that people had over the supposed crisis of anti-Semitism, and then was treated as made her a persona non grata when it was a joke, a self-deprecating joke about her own ethnicity rather than like a genuine claim, right? And that received loads of scrutiny, and nobody bought the reason for why those statements were made. And yet she was seen as being so far gone that she should not be allowed in the Labour Party at all, and was expelled on grounds of the fact that she spoke at a prescribed group's event like 3 years before they were even prescribed. Right, it was a retroactive expulsion from the party. When again, this was completely outside of the kind of proper due process that people should be having within the Labour Party. And again, she didn't get any charitability at all